Kia ora, friends! Hello!
Yay!
And
Hello,
welcome
everyone.
back to the Brickanista Broadcast Network here on YouTube and on Rumble. And I'm here with my buddy, p.t.mcewen.
Howdy, everyone.
I know, it's so funny because we've been using this new startup music for the last, a month or so. And it always, what I love about it is I just feel so excited to start the show.
It is. You're like at a movie theater type experience. You know? It's like,
ta-da, we're here.
Exactly.
And I want to acknowledge that the music came from Joriel Builds or John M. Williams, who recently got married. I don't know if you heard about this, that him and Ariel, who kind of met over the hobby and also at a coffee shop, and they've been together for several years, and they recently tied the knot, I think last weekend or the weekend before. So yeah, so anyway,
Very
he
nice.
had made this music for the Super Sewer Baby Justice League. That when I was doing all those builds with all those little sewer babies, and he had the dessert babies, and then other people on Tricky
remember
Lab
that.
making baby builds, and we came up with the Super Baby Justice League. So that is the theme music for the Super Baby Justice League that we've never used. And I said, you know what? I could use this for my stream. This is great. So I'm glad you like it. I know Debo's in the house, and he had mentioned he watched a recording and liked the music. So hey, Debo, how's it going?
There, Debo.
Yes, the air is thick with anticipation, and it tastes faintly of cinnamon. And it was great to see, Debo, your builds that you posted about Brick World Chicago. I know that was your very first time at a conference, so I was really glad to see that you had a good time with that. And I know that PT and I had just gotten back from Bricks Cascade, and while we were at Bricks Cascade, we had met our friend who's in the green room in person. And he's also a member of the cast of LEGOMasters Season 3, US, North America. And he said, Naomi, you know, how can I help you? And I said, well, you know what? We're getting ready to review these LEGOMasters New Zealand episodes. And he said, sign me up. So I'm happy to bring back again to the stream. Here we have Stephen Yo, also known as Yo-Yo Firebricks.
Hey.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for offering too, because I know that it was great to meet you in person after our 3.5-hour interview with you and Crash, and which is a record on the Brickanista Broadcast Network. And
She talks about that all the time.
Right.
She's like, wow, it was like 3 hours, over 3 hours.
It was longer than The Godfather 2, right? We were going through the list of IMDb longest running movies. And I even remember during that stream, I said, you know, if we go for another half hour, we'll be longer than Gone with the Wind, right?
We were longer than Gandhi and one of the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, we went on and on and on. And it just shows you the time just flew by, and we were just having a great time. And I'm really glad that you weren't frightened by that last time we met, and you wanted to come back, which is so great.
Anytime I get to talk about Lego, I'm usually really happy. So.
Well, great. Well, since we were talking about Brick World Chicago, you were just there, and
Yes.
you had a chance to meet with a lot of the cast members and of multiple Lego Masters. And I'm just curious if you could share a little bit about your experience with that.
Wow, what a treat. And I believe you just said earlier, Debo, that was your first convention. Wow, what a way to jump into convention season for you, because that is... I've been doing conventions for about 10 years, and that was absolutely hands down the most insane and a massive and familiar and fun, and like it was just incredible.
Yeah.
For those who weren't aware, the final numbers were just shy of 1,700 registered AFOLs. And
that is crazy. That's like 3 times what I'm used to.
Yeah, that's like huge. I believe that might officially make it the largest AFOL convention in the world. I can't confirm that. I believe that those numbers support that. And in addition to the 1,700 AFOLs, they had over 16,000 members of the public show up.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it wall to wall, elbow to elbow of Lego fans of all ages, and it was a truly special opportunity for me because Brick World extended the invite to not just myself as a Lego Masters cast member. They were very proactive in bringing out as many as they could, and I think the final number was 48
Wow.
cast members, and that included one from
Australia, right?
Australia
Watkins Fleur was there.
and one from, was it Norway? The one and only season that Norway's done.
Oh,
Cast members
wow.
were she was under the radar. She was trying to be fairly quiet. She didn't want to step on anyone's toes, but of course we're all very personal.
We're Americans and Canadians. We're North Americans.
There was at least 2, but I believe more of the unannounced season 4 cast members walking.
Oh.
They're all very tight-lipped. They're not allowed to talk about it, but I've been very lucky to get to know a few of them away from the Lego Masters thing. So I know some people's involvement. So it was truly an incredible family reunion of sorts, and it led to a really fun weekend of a lot of great conversations. The unfortunate part is even if you had like a 10-minute meaningful conversation with each cast member, you're in there for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to catch up to everyone, but it was a very unique opportunity for especially the North American followers of Lego Masters.
Mm-hmm. Well, since you were talking about really nice conversations, I know you and I had a chance to chat, first of all, over lunch when we just grabbed a bunch of chairs and sat around a table and just hung out for a little bit. And then I just wanted to thank you that you were so proactive, because you reached out to me on Instagram. You said, I really want to have a conversation with you. And I'm like, really? You do? And I think it goes back to just the willingness of people to help lift each other up. And I just really wanted to just take the time to thank you for that, because I know PT has also been very generous with his time, and also just sending little gifts and things to help promote the Brickanista Broadcast Network. And something that just came up this week. So for those of you who are not following and subscribing yet, please like and subscribe to the stream, because YouTube just announced that they've lowered their threshold from 1,000 subscribers down to 500 subscribers for small different types of YouTubers like myself that can start monetizing after that. So I'm up to 372. So if you have the ability, it doesn't cost you anything. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button. So if you don't mind, please, that would be awesome to do that. And I know a lot of people have been promoting that, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. And another thing I wanted to ask you, but before I do, let me give PT some time to ask you some questions as well.
Stephen, I was just going to ask you what kind of, you've been to conventions before, kind of compare and contrast that Chicago Brick World seemed to be so big. What other factors were different or compared to other cons that you've been to?
Well, every convention I've been to has kind of its own separate feel. There's the local community, and then there's the people that tend to travel for all these things. So a lot of familiar faces, but the vibe is often a little bit different. I've been to a couple of very, very large events where perhaps everyone kept within their own little cliques within the room, which is totally normal and totally expected. But there was something about Brick World Chicago where the entire room was very all-encompassing. It was a very personal feeling of what you might get from a smaller convention. And I've been to some very tiny ones, which are really cool because you get personal one-on-one time with a small community of people. And I'm catching up with my friends because I've known these builders within our community for, in many cases, over a decade. So the smaller conventions I really enjoy, but like Chicago was just so massive, but everyone was so involved with each other and coming up to one another and taking turns. Okay, I'm doing a supply run. Who needs something to eat? Who needs something to drink? And we were all making sure that we were taking care of one another. And just walking through the hall, there occasionally I would get recognized and people would want to stop and talk. And I love that. I love being able to engage with people. So people felt comfortable enough to walk up to me as a perfect stranger and carry on conversations and share stories of their building experience. And in some cases, people there for their birthdays. I'm like, yes, happy birthday. And then you happy birthday. So it's a very welcoming environment. Not like I think in general, Lego fans are very welcoming. But there was something about Chicago. It was the first time I've been to Brick World, Chicago, and it's always been on my to-do list. And this year was the year to do it. And I can tell you hands down, it's not the last time I'm going to go to this one because it's amazing. It's amazing. It's huge.
Did you get to bring a build?
Yeah, so I traveled a fairly long ways, so it was all what I could pack into my suitcase.
Yeah.
I had a chance to pack a build that you guys would have seen in Bricks Cascade in Portland the month. That was the macro figure version of my Sig Fig, so the brick built firefighter. And
that's also in the promo.
Yes, that's what I'm holding in my hand. Yeah, that's been fun because a little sideline story. Hopefully, I'm not getting too long-winded.
No.
When we came home from filming in Atlanta for season 3, one of the cast members, Block Doc Justin, he was working on one of those macro figures based off of that Harry Potter set. And he actually asked me, hey, if you haven't done this, maybe you should do it and we could do a few of these things. And I'm like, oh, yeah, totally. All on board. So I started making it. And then we had a couple of cast members start to make them. And it was before they had released the Pirate Lego House exclusive. And now they actually have a Lego City guy who's that same scale. So now going to conventions, you're going to start to see more of those personalized.'re calling them big figs. So the little guys are the Sig Fig.
Yeah.
And the big guys are the big figs. So it's really fun because as you're aware, when you go to conventions, when you see a person with their Sig Fig, it's like a business card, right? So now it's like a business card holder, if you will. So yeah. Anyways,
have you made a Brickheads too? Have you a Brickheads? Because I'm part of the Dream Builders Lug, and we were told to make one of these of us. So I was curious if you've also done the Brickhead version too.
I've actually made Brickheads of everyone in my family. So
awesome.
share that with you someday. I'm wearing a Classic Space logo on my shirt. So it was an old tile I got off of an old set years ago. So I'll dig up those. I know they're in my build room right now. Unfortunately, folks, I'm not in my build room. But next time I'll be in my build room and then I'll pull them off the shelf behind me.
Right.
And I brought out a new build for Chicago, which was a tiny, small version, or small 16 by 16 little vignette of Benny riding a classic space horse. And if you're familiar with the classics that go back to the pre-molded plastic horses, they used to brick build horses. And I used all classic space original parts and pieces to create a classic space horse. It looks very robotic. And Benny's riding it, and I built a little miniature space crater similar to the ones that you had in the 70s and 80s. And then I had all the little tiny mini Bennies that come from the brown classic space character. I had a whole bunch of them running around the ground around Benny. So
and the new Space Baby, right? Did you put the new Space Baby in there? Yeah.
It was just something fun that popped into my mind when I was sitting at my build table procrastinating on another project. And then
Go ahead.
I was going to say there was a third project that just got introduced. So Brick and Nick, the winner of season 3, he and I are doing a collaborative build, and we just started it. We did step number 1 for Brick World.
Fun.
We're doing Bricks in the 6 in about another month, and we're going to expand on it. And then by the end of the year, we hope to have a mini land scale entire studio set of LEGOMasters, including the Brick Pit.
Oh, wow. Fun.
Should be doable. It's a very large project. I think the final dimensions we settled on were about 30 inches wide by 75 inches long, and it'll open up. It'll have 12 build tables. It'll represent all 12 teams plus our 13th team that was the extra team. All our characters will be built off of our cast members. They'll be mini land scale, and we'll do micro builds of all their favorite builds for their build tables, and then we'll have Brick, Amy, and Will.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Ambitious, but Nick is an impressive builder, and he's really pushing me to keep up with him. So it's great. I love that.
When is the final build? What convention are you thinking about? Brick Can for that, or
that likely will be Brick Can. There's a very, very small chance that we'll be ready to take it to Scareback in Denmark.
Oh, that's really soon.
That's my family is noticing that I'm spending a little more time building, so I need to concentrate on some family time. So we'll
should do that. In fact, right before the stream, your daughter was asking, "How long are you going to be on this, Dad?"
She wants to use the room I'm in. That's it. She doesn't care.
Oh, okay. It's not about you. It's about the room. All right.
But it was funny because I said, "Trust me, it's not going to be 3.5 hours like the last time." And we had a marathon conversation with you and Crash, and I'm sure it was great for you to also see Crash again too.
Yeah, I love that guy. He and I, we pick up exactly where we left off. No matter how much time is in between visits, we're very familiar. We've known each other for years.
There's a comment in the chat from Debo too. Apparently, Stephen and I had an awkward moment in Chicago. It was one of those things where two people walking towards each other trying to sidestep and going in the same direction. Good times.
We call that the Canadian standoff, where you try. I'm sorry. Well, Debo, I don't know if you had a chance to see some of his builds, but he's a really amazing builder, and I'm really sad that have not seen his builds in person yet. And the other, go ahead. No, after you, Naomi.
No, I was just going to pivot that the other thing that was there at Chicago was the new Hashima collaborative, since you were talking about collaborations.
Yes.
And that was absolutely insane. It was like 80 builders, 7 countries, all converging on Chicago.
I mean, I get the bragging rights to say I was involved with that project, but let me tell you folks, like there were some builders and then there were some basic contributors. It was about a week before 2 of the people involved with the project contacted me and said, "Hey, you know what? We have this fire scene, but nobody's built a fire truck. Can you build us a cyberpunk fire truck?" I'm like, "Oh, I've never built cyberpunk. I totally want to do this." So over the weekend, I managed to whip together something I was fairly happy with, and I brought it to them, and then I saw the magnitude of their project. I'm like, well, I don't even know if you guys need what I have, but they incorporated it. It was very nice. But for those who have not yet seen it, I highly, highly, highly encourage you on social media to track it down. New Hashima.
I'll put it in the chat.
The word going around, and I don't use this lightly because I've been doing conventions a long time, and I've been following social media platforms of all varieties all around the world. This has been described as the greatest mock of all time, and it is bonkers. It is absolutely phenomenal. I think the final dimensions were 15 feet by 15 feet by about 12 feet high. Like they were using ladders to do
it. It was massive. And I put in the chat that Beyond the Brick has a video of an interview with Stefan, who is the key builder who started this, by the way, 4 years ago in Alabama, and then just started recruiting more and more people. It's 2.5 hours long, just the review of the mock.
You could walk around it and spend 5 to 10 minutes and literally not see the same thing twice. Like every time I lapped it was so phenomenal. They allowed us to view it during the day, but at night, Brickworld does a special thing where it's after dark. They turn the lights off. Right. And of course, the entire display was illuminated and just so impressive. Yeah. Everywhere. Like it was the best of the best building I've ever witnessed, and it was done exponentially. Like there was some talk of even trying to get somebody from Guinness Book of World Records down there to even just catalog something because it was so profoundly amazing. I was happy to see it in person for sure.
What's funny is that if you watch that Beyond the Brick video, at the very end, Stefan says, "Oh, we're not done. So buckle up, everybody." And I was, if you read about New Hashima, it's pretty much if you want to join, you just have to follow the specs and you can, contribute a little cube to it, or if you want to build a tower. So I did reach out to one of the co-builders, Simon Liu.
Yep.
And it's interesting because Simon says, "I'm not sure. Is it going to continue in Chicago? I thought it was a one and done thing." But after you just said that, Yo-Yo, it's like maybe they should do it at least one more time so that it could get into the Guinness Book of World Records, right?
Yeah, like it was just the buzzword going around. I can't confirm or deny the accuracy of what I just said, but it was so insane to just stand there and just be like, I have seen thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of creations.
Yeah.
I've been to the Lego house. I have been to the set of LEGOMasters. I've done some really incredibly cool things as an AFOL, and I have never witnessed anything like that in person. It was just pure spectacle. It was in awe. Like, it was so absolutely insane. There was a gentleman that built a small futuristic city that was about 30 inches by 30 inches and 3 feet tall. And he was 50 feet off to the side, and it was his own creation. He wasn't involved with that project. On its own, his build was magnificent and incredibly detailed, and sadly completely overshadowed by this massive build in the middle of the room. It definitely commandeered your attention, and it had a crowd solidly the entire weekend.
Right. And I think too, it shows you the power of collaborations too.
It really does. Yeah.
And you were there at Bricks Cascade that I had a chance to participate with the Jurassic Park collab.
Yes.
And won the People's Choice Award. Sorry about my dog there. It's okay, girl. But the People's Choice Award, and I think you were standing next to me when they made the announcement.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh my God, we won the People's Choice Award. And
it absolutely should have. It was amazing.
And I remember taking you over to meet with Mark, who built the volcano.
Volcano builder, yes.
And I tell you, just the craftsmanship of so many builders coming together, it's just inspiring. So I'm hoping that they're going to do this again next year, because I asked them if I could join in on the collab, because that would get me to Chicago. Because right now I don't like big crowds. I'm just, I kind of wither when I'm in a big crowd. So.
Well, as an AFOL attendee of Brick World, the building is particularly massive. There were, I don't know how many thousands of individual mocks were on display, but there was many thousands. And you had asked if I had seen some of Debo's works, and I apologize. I tried so hard to get through that room, and I did not see everything. I was there for 4 days, and I couldn't see it all. So as an AFOL, you have the ability of viewing things after hours when the public's not there, and the crowd's quite a bit lower. You get a chance for more one-on-one time with the creators, because sometimes you'll see something magnificent during the public hours, but that creator, Brick Huntress, Kate, she's incredible, and she brought out a new Star Wars mock, and she had a swarm of people around her asking her questions. Even if you wanted to talk to her, you couldn't, right? Like, she was just busy interacting with the fans of the community. And there was a lot of builders like that. Like, the very large builds commandeered a lot of attention from people. So as an AFOL, Brick World is fantastic for so many things, but it also gives you access after hours, which lets you go through the room a little bit quicker.
Yes, I definitely appreciate the quiet time. And I think I just have to get over my aversion of large crowds. And I've been talking to Emily about that, and she says, I hear you. And it's just, you just have to find maybe like, what is it, like a wing person to go with you places. So
I often was told I needed a handler, because I'm like the dog Doug from Squirrel. And I stopped 40, 50 times. I needed a lot of help making it through.
Distract you. Come on. It's time to go.
They had 5 different LEGOMasters panels, and I signed up for the one on Saturday morning. And I had heard a few of the other cast members were late, and I was chastising them like, you need to be on time. You need to be punctual. Respect people's times. And then it took me 45 minutes to cross a room, and I showed up with 1 minute to spare for my panel.
Oh,
I felt bad about that.
Wow. So Debo just wanted to mention his table was directly across from Eurobrick's build. So I was staring at New Hashima for 4 days and saw it evolve. They finally finished it at 11:30 Friday night. They erupted with applause. It's like,
they weren't sure they were going to get it done.
Wow.
It took a lot of work. Like, I showed up on Tuesday, and in the lobby of the hotel, they had commandeered all the tables, and they were doing finishing touches on Tuesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they spent 4 solid days. And I assure you, a few of those guys did not sleep.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Wild.
Well, before we get into the review, since we are talking about Brick World Chicago, I did want to mention, and I'm going to share this screen, that there was a nice tribute to one of your castmates, and that was Carrie Wu. And Emily had posted this. And I did a short build stream yesterday of these lotus flowers. So I'm encouraging anybody who's watching this that if you build the lotus flowers, just take some time to think about this cast member, Carrie Wu, who suddenly passed on June 11th, which was just days before the convention. And I was hoping you could also explain some of the different tokens of appreciation that are here in his honor.
Absolutely. Thank you for recognizing this. For those who are following, the LEGOMasters family lost one of ours this last week and a half ago. Carrie Wu was a very energetic individual that was on the season with me, season 3. And I had the privilege of spending a couple of weeks with him before his team went home. And he always brought a really positive attitude to the room. So he will be missed. We were talking to him just days before he was supposed to be in Chicago. We had display table portion set up for him. So where he was supposed to display some of his works, we actually set up this little memorial. The people from LEGOMasters were kind enough to provide us with some documentations, and the family helped us out with getting the photos ready. And then it was put out there to cast members and other LEGO fans if you wanted to lay a little tribute in Carrie's honor. You could post in front of his photo there. So you'll see in that photo there's a number of stickers from the different cast members that were on the season with him, as well as a few other seasons of LEGOMasters. The flowers were the tribute to his heritage. And then little tiny tokens. In the middle there, one of the tokens that I like to bring to conventions is I've got a Canadian flag engraved on a brick. But there was also little tiny flowers on a 1x4. There was, I see one creation in there, a little tiny red figure on the right-hand side of the screen. I believe he's called a little bit further.
The red brick?
No, he's a little bit further down. He's between Emily and Austin's sticker.
Oh, this little one. I
forget what he's called, but he's actually put there by one of the model team members from Legoland New York.
Oh,
there's a lot of significance in the community. We like to take care of ourselves or each other. We're a big family, and you can see that there's a big red flower there that was put down by Corey. Corey's
the Brago.
And then there are little tiny tokens of various different shapes and sizes. And in the back, in the middle, you can see a tiny little red L and M. That's for LEGOMasters.
LEGOMaster.
For Brick World, I made these little tiny badge toppers for all the LEGO cast members, and that one was supposed to be for Carrie. So we were able to make sure that he was still part of our family, and he wasn't.
And we had a chance to interview him. When I had a chance to interview you and Crash, we also had an interview with Carrie and Patrick, and he was just so much fun to chat with. And he had, like you said, such a real positive attitude. And the one thing I'll never forget that he said is that if you have the passion, just go for it. And it doesn't have to be Lego. It could be whatever you feel like you're passionate about. Just go for it, because we are all Lego masters. And that was just something that really stuck with me. And I'm really going to miss him. And I didn't know him as well as you did, but I'm just very grateful that he was with us and was able to share so much of his life.
One of my cast members said it very well once when we first found out. It took us all by surprise. It was very surreal. And then we sat back and reflected and said, you know what? Carrie was living his best life, and that's so important. So we can be thankful for the fact that he had his best thing going. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to also recognize some people in the chat who have also joined us. Ahoy, hoy, Brick Jedi. Nice to have you here. Hey. And Debo also mentioned, going back to the convention, that when the public comes in, it's safer to stay behind your table. And other times, it's not that crowded at all. So, well, Debo, I know you said you're going to be back in Chicago. I have it on my radar now, so maybe I will be there in 2024. But I'm really glad that you were able to share with us so much about what happened there in Chicago. And PT, did you have any other questions about Chicago before we launch into the review?
How did things travel for you
So again, not my first rodeo. I've had a chance to go to a lot of conventions. I'm learning a little more each time. I stuck with things that were small enough to go carry on. However, I had to check these large 15 by 15 inch bases that I made for our LEGOMasters set that Nick and I have been working on. They did not travel as well because the baggage handlers have a mysterious way of dealing with things.
Shake it up.
Yeah. I don't know. I've had a chance as a firefighter to actually go to airports and do security checks down below, and I'm just horrified with how things are dealt with, but I'm not changing the world for that. What I do know is so Block Doc Justin, he brought something to Brickcan in a check bag that got absolutely obliterated and then spent 2 days rebuilding it.
That's the Stranger Things one, right?
Yeah, and this time he bought a very expensive, very robust Pelican case that had special foam inserts.
Oh, nice.
Largely lasted. Like it took a big brunt. It had some big scuffs on the case, meaning it wasn't handled with the kind of hands.
Wow.
But it went okay. There's other perils to travel. Like if you wanted to drive, like I've driven many times from my hometown to Brickcan, which is about a 12-hour drive on the highway.
Oh wow.
And several years ago, got cut off by a semi truck and had to slam on the brakes, and I could just hear the Jenga happening.
Yes.
Oh no.
These things happen. It's all Lego, so it's all rebuildable.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the only thing you really get to have control over is your attitude. So don't take it personally. These things happen, and put your head down. And you built it before, you can build it again.
Yeah.
I also
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I didn't know if you had any special tips, like saran wrap it, or it's in a plastic bag, or.
The smaller items I tend to compartmentalize in plastic bags. Then I use the plastic bags to pack around some of the bigger things. Anything that can be modularized is better. Like if you have a building and you could take floors off of it, that's better. Or if you can take the roof off, wrap them in saran wrap, paper towel, that helps quite a bit.
You use bubble wrap too. I saw you wrapping your big fig in bubble wrap.
And like the really big bubbles, not the small guys, because I still find there's a little bit of crush component to those. The big bubbles are really nice and robust. You can usually get them like TJ Marshalls or Staples and places like that sell the big rolls of them. Yeah, that's kind of the trick. Keep it simple. Oh, and take lots of reference photos. Fire helmet. If you get a chance to see my big fig, the fire helmet, I'm quite pleased with, because I used the most bizarre, incredibly weird snot techniques. So it builds in 4 separate directions, and it did not survive traveling that well. And I remember like scratching my head, like I'm pretty sure I got a photo on my phone, and it happened to be from a previous convention that I brought it to. I had taken reference photos and was able to reverse engineer it based off of those photos, because it was going to go without a helmet there for a little while.
That's good. No, I've done the same, where I've had to go, and I didn't have photos, so I went to my Instagram account and I was like, oh, there it is.
There you go.
Zoom it in, and I'm like, all right.
Yep, that's the way to do it for sure.
Oh, all right. The struggle is real.
The struggle is real.
But it is rebuildable.
Yes.
We can make it happen, which is great. Well, cool. Well, many people who are tuning into this, by the way, we're both on YouTube and Rumble. This is a LEGOMasters New Zealand review for season 2, episode 4, which I don't know if you knew this, Yo-Yo, but when they broadcasted these shows, they did it 3 days in a row, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 3 weeks in a row, which I just thought was kind of strange that they would broadcast it that way. But we're doing weekly reviews. So we're now on episode 4. And there's that helmet that you were talking about on your big fig. I love that photo of you, because you had mentioned you wear your baseball cap all the time. So it's a really great photo.
I've taken to starting to do my hair every now and then at conventions, because people just don't recognize me unless I've got
unless you take the hat off. Oh, look, E.B. Good is in the house.
Hey
Eddie. How's it going?
Good to see you, buddy.
You're just in time. We're just launching into the episode 4 review of LEGOMasters New Zealand. Now, have you met any of the cast members there?
Personally, I have not. So my exposure to them was just from watching the show. I'm very, very fortunate enough to call Robin Sather, the Brickmaster, the judge.
Yes.
I've known him for a lot of years, probably 10 plus years now. So I was very excited when his journey with this program started, and he's amazing. And if you watch the show, you can see his kind nature,
Yeah.
and how good he is with interacting with people, and how he fosters creativity. So Robin's a wonderful human being in so many ways.
We love him. And he also has shown up on our reviews as well, both for season 1 and for season 2. And you absolutely nailed it. He is such a kind and generous person. And it was great having you also as another Canadian who was reviewing this show. And I really love this episode. This is, I think, every week I keep saying, oh my gosh, I love this episode. And this one, I'm just in awe of what they built based on what the challenge was.
Truly, this is the point where by episode 4, teams are really starting to catch their stride. They've got a few challenges under their belts. They're starting to understand their strengths, their weaknesses as team members. But you're also starting to see that family develop within the room. And you had seen in the previous episode, hopefully it's not a spoiler, there was a team that had a catastrophic failure towards the end.
Yeah.
The entire team rallied, like everyone in that room rallied behind them. Nobody felt victorious from somebody else's failure, right? It was just ill-timed and a pure accident. But you could see how tight this group of people is right now. So by episode 4, I was really enjoying the room dynamic as they're interacting with them.
No, I agree. Absolutely. So the teams walked in, and in front of them, in front of Robin is these table with all these boxes, these presents, and Dai's missing, but he just suddenly appears out of this Lego built box, and the top did shatter, just hits the floor and shatters into pieces. But so it was exciting when he came in, and then they basically went on and said, "Look, we have these gifts for you. You each pick one, and there's your theme for your build." And so they went on with that. So let's see. The first team was Ollie and Charlie, and they picked the blue box, which had Christmas in it, and so that was their theme build. Then we had Rachel and Jason, and they had the green box, and there was a rose for Valentine's Day. Andrew and Harry, they pulled that brown box, which is birthday, a little cake inside. Karsten and Angus had a housewarming, and they pulled that white box. And Amy and Louie had the red box, and they pulled a wedding. So Naomi, I'll let you do the brief.
I will just preface this by saying when PT and I talked about how we're going to frame this show, I said, we need to have a brief slide, because I had this conversation with a couple different Lego Masters that it would be nice if you just had a little card that said what you were supposed to do when and all of the requirements. So this particular one, as you just saw, there are 5 different themes, and that you have to build something that represents the occasion. But here is the cool part. The build has to open up to show the scene. So there has to be some sort of mechanics that go into this build so that what's inside is revealed. And that this particular episode, there would be a team advantage. So the previous episode was an elimination round. This one was not. And they had 13 hours to do it.
Very nice.
13 hours seems like a long time, people, but I guarantee you.
Right. And this, it's interesting because we talked about this with the rodeo episode for your season, Yo-Yo, that the interpretation of the brief was different for different cast members. Some people thought that it was 30 studs or 30 inches from the seat of the bull versus the bottom stirrups. And I think the people who had gone with the stirrups ended up with an advantage because they had a lower center of gravity.
I would agree.
So if they had all had the brief in a little card just like this, everybody would be on an equal playing field.
But that's the fun part of it. The rules, even though they're rules, are slightly up to interpretation. And this one, admittedly, when I heard about it, I'm like, oh, it's got to open. Instantly, I was thinking mechanical movement, and that was actually not a prerequisite. And you could see as the teams were building, there was a couple of teams that were trying for that mechanical movement that it really backfired on them. So they listened to the pure brief of the rules. It didn't say power functioned motors or anything.
Right.
I fell into this in my own season, just for the way. I'm not being critical of them. I just know that sometimes you hear something and you instantly think a specific thing, and it's not necessarily accurate to what you heard.
Gotcha.
Right, because the last brief for the last episode said you have to have lighting in it. And there should be, I think, well, there didn't have to be a mechanical piece, but several of the teams did that with the moon rising, for example. And then the team you had mentioned that had the catastrophic failure, they spent a lot of time trying to put a mechanical portion to the build, and it wasn't a requirement.
No, you do have to understand what your story is, because and ultimately, and Brickmaster Robin brought this up to one of the teams, like, what's your story? Focus on your story. Your story is what has to be shown. I need to understand your story.
Right.
So if you can focus on the core of the story and then give it some song and dance afterwards, the movement's fantastic. And of course, it proves to the Brickmasters that, hey, I can do this extra technique. But if it's not required, it shouldn't be your primary focus right away.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Carson and Angus, they had, of course, housewarming, and they decided to do this book, a book that you would give to someone into their home. There's a couple of shots here where we have them working on it, putting together. Angus right there is putting pictures together. And
Brilliant idea.
Yeah, to put inside the book on one page. Carson's working on, I believe, the model of a house on the inside with different scenes that they're putting together. And and there's Carson, I guess, pushing those pictures into the side of the book.
That was a really neat turning point for them, because you could see a little bit of panic. And for those that followed that episode, not too sure if you knew what was going on, but when you're trying to clutch a very large surface area to a very large surface area, and there's a little bit of flex within your original build, sometimes it doesn't clutch right away. And they were getting panicky because it had to sit upright, and they weren't confident that everything could stay there. My big-headed mind on things like this is force it, right? So I was like, you need to get the hammer out and smash it.
Hammer.
Exactly.
The answer, the answer was the absolute simplest thing. How about you raise it up a single plate behind it, just along the edge, and then it instantly clutched. So it was the simplest solution to something that at the time you could see they were panicking about.
Yeah, and that's a good example of one team member, just kind of sitting back and saying, oh, because especially if you're focused on this and struggling with it, and then your fellow teammate just says, hey, just do this. And it's
really easy.
Yeah. Real easy solution.
So. And Angus has been on our show. So if anybody wants to go back for our review of episode 2, Angus also had a chance to just talk about the dynamic between him and Karsten, that it was, they were a team that was the random new alliance team. So they hadn't worked together before. So it was also good to see that they were coming up with the shorthand that worked for them.
Yeah. They're well, I think Robin in one of the first episodes called them the power team. And I believe it. They have proficiencies, they have skills, but the really important thing is they have this perseverance and calmness about them. It's really important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Amy and Louie had the wedding. They decided to do a wedding cushion with some rings on the top. And so this is some of their in progress builds, them kind of building the cushion, and there Amy showing off this ring prototype that she was building to Robin. Showing to Robin what that was. Got another couple shots here. This one is just, you can kind of see the puffiness or the billows of the pillow, and kind of that structure. And the idea was that it would open up, and inside they would have a scene. And so that's kind of what they're having here. And they haven't built the scene out, but these are in progress photos. it was interesting because I think the lesson learned here was they talked about the angles, trying to make curves out of square bricks.
Oh my gosh.
And
yeah.
And you can see how they're having some issues trying to make that.
Trying to get folds
together
of a pillow, something that's kind of very fluid. And yeah, I was like, wow, that's ambitious.
There are teams that do well with skinning. So they've used a Technic frame and then they skin it with hinging. And there's teams that do well with sculpting. And it's obviously whatever your comfort zone is. I would view the way that they did it a little more challenging than straight up sculpting. But of course, sculpting takes more brick. It's heavier, and then the opening component to be a bit more complicated. This is a really cool twist on it, because instantly when I thought wedding, I'm like, wedding cake. But they went a very different direction, and of course that classic pillow that holds the rings. Really, really neat idea. Really neat idea.
No, yeah, it's a good. I didn't think about that. But I was just thinking more of the struggle of picking a pillow. A cake, I can do a cake.
they had 13 hours, and by 6.5 hours in at the halfway point, they really only had a small portion of the skin done, and that's a bit of panic. I've been in that position where your time management starts coming into play, and like, okay, what are we prepared to sacrifice, and what are we prepared to force ourselves on? So
yeah. So the next team is Charlie and Ollie, and they had Christmas, and they decided to do a Christmas globe.
This is outrageous, this build.
Yeah, well, first you started going, and you're kind of like, what? I'm thinking blue Death Star here, but and I built the globe, the Lego globe set, and which is quite smaller than this.
I was just going to say, isn't this quite a bit larger than the regular globe from
it is
Lego?
And that Lego globe doesn't open; it does rotate. But yeah.
And the other thing about Charlie, it's like he just builds so fast, and he like runs to the brick pit, grabs a bunch of Technic, and then he all of a sudden has a frame. It's like, what do you think of this size? It's kind of like, okay, that's good. It's like, wow.
Well, I can't believe that just conceptually he's able to pull this out of air, implement it within a couple of hours, and have it moving shortly thereafter. Like, when it was just the bird cage type framing, and he put the armatures in it and it opened up seamlessly, I'm like, what?
Where'd that come from? And they put those in the promos too, when they were doing promos for this particular episode. You see this big globe open up, and you're just like, whoa,
so impressive,
insane,
so impressive.
Yes.
And I would have to say I think what was really impressive is after that they were getting ready to build, they actually did use motors and automated it, and it had a hard time, but his solution was he knew exactly what the problem was.
Tip it forward.
Take that stress. I need to come here. Let's push it up. And he had to, put a layer of brick, and it gave it just a little tilt that allowed that mechanism to open very seamlessly.
And his confidence, like his understanding of how the mechanism worked, what was at fault, what needed to be done. Yeah. And then as he's tipping it forward, and Ollie says, "Are you sure we're not going to make this thing fall over?" He's like, "No, it'll be fine. Like, just
just hold on to it so it doesn't tip over too much."
It's like in his head, he's done this so many times that it's going to be fine. I'm like, unreal confidence. I love that.
Yeah. No, it was.
Later episodes, it's interesting to see all the teams, just how much confidence, since you're talking about confidence, people grow into that as they get further along in the competition. But he has had the confidence from day one. I mean, just looking at all the builds that this team has done. Yeah. But this globe, oh my gosh. Wow.
Crazy concept. And embarrassingly, I like to consider myself to be fairly worldly, but if you had asked me to hand draw all the continents on a flat piece of paper, be accurate, I don't think I could. Like, I would not have put New Zealand where they put New Zealand, for example. So for them to actually just eyeball it, and the fact that it's not a flat surface, it's actually like these wedge pieces on tops and bottoms. I'm like, come on, like that in itself is amazing.
Yeah. That's Ollie's talent too. Is Ollie brought in the artistic part, and I think there was also a part too where didn't she refer to a certain section that needed to be redone on that because of the aesthetics weren't quite right. So yeah, amazing team.
I'm very impressed with this team. They look young. I don't know their age. That's irrelevant in the hobby. I've seen some young and some old people of incredible confidence and competencies, but they are truly a very well organized team, and they've clearly worked together a lot. They know how to balance one another.
They're siblings, and Charlie is 18 and Ollie is 21.
Come on, really?
Yeah.
Ollie. I wish I was building like that at their age.
Woo! Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. If you saw the first episode where they talked about, I guess, part of the interview process, Charlie actually built a motorcycle that you could actually ride, and he would ride it around the school.
Yeah.
I mean, who does that, right?
Who does that?
Yeah.
They clearly are passionate for the hobby, and I love them for it. They're a fun team to watch because they don't, like, if you put me and my sister in a room, we'd be like,
I saw that with Emily and Dave, the Geddes.
Oh yeah.
Siblings.
They were, what you saw on TV was just the snippet of it. Those two were just pure entertainment. No hate, just really good digs back and forth. But
well, the previous episode when they built the kiwi and the sheep who were eating on the beach, and I think this is another example of Charlie just building really fast. And then Ollie looks at him and says, shouldn't we have water on the beach? He's like, oh yeah, that's right. We need some water, don't we? She goes, would you build that, please?
They're a fun team to watch. These two, I can't wait to see more from them.
Yeah. This is a great team.
So next is Rachel and Jason, and they originally started with a heart. We'll have a picture of it here, but they ended up changing and pivoting and doing a Valentine's Day card, which was actually a very thick, more like a book, but you'll see that.
The refrigerator.
The refrigerator. Yeah. So the other funny thing I thought, so this is a picture of the heart, but the other funny thing is they don't celebrate Valentine's Day. So they've never really, and they are the ones who pulled this. And so they're just kind of going off of friends and others. And I think she makes a joke. This will be the only Valentine's card that Jason gets from her. But yeah, they kept the heart through the whole thing just on their build table, but they never really did anything with it. And there's Robin talking to him there, and you can kind of see the big white box. What did he call it? He called it the
fridge.
Valentine fridge, yeah.
Valentine refrigerator. And she even said maybe they'll start giving away Valentine refrigerators to each other in the future.
Yes, instead of cards, go buy your honey a fridge or something like that.
Which, by the way, Rachel and Jason will be on the show next week. They have confirmation. So if you want to tune in for next week, you'll get to ask them questions too.
Yeah. So as a former cast member, let me give these two kudos because you really don't have a lot of time to just pivot and change wholeheartedly. Bad pun, I guess. Full spectrum what you were doing. That is a leap of faith to just get to an hour or two into something. And I think they were like an hour and a half in by the time they had started to realize, man, what are we doing with this heart? And why are we focusing so much on the heart? And to me, I was thinking, oh, the heart would be a really cool box of chocolates that you could open up. Like you would
do. Yeah.
And that was how my brain was starting to go. But they needed to create a scene. And when they started going to the card, I'm like, I don't know. But boy, did they ever pull this one out. This was super neat. And this is a perfect example of how amazing Robin Sather is as a brickmaster, because he said, hey, what makes a card a card? Well, it's something on the front, it's something on the back. It needs to have that transference as a card. And it did look like the love fridge. And then they added these details that you see here with the script, where it changed everything right away. It was so well done. And they chose to go like a winter scene, which I thought was a little unusual, but then you make the white stand out with the red heart so much better. It was a fantastic use of color in parts and pieces. and an incredible pivot, which is not easy to do. It really isn't.
Yeah.
They did a great job. I love this one.
Yeah.
I just love the banter between the two of them too, because of the fact that they don't celebrate this, and they kept saying, "Well, what would you say to me? What would what would I say to you? What would be on a card?"
That is too funny. So next we have Andrew and Harry, and they decided to come up with a birthday balloon. And to earlier in your point, Stephen, they being engineers thought mechanically, and so they created, the idea was this balloon that would just pop open, and they were seen would be inside. And so that's, you kind of see some of that mechanism here that they started early on, and the framing and whatnot. A little more work as they're building there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can kind of see how the balloon is shaping up with their scene. I did like it, and it comes out with that. We talk about that later. Is the scenes that they had, that was really nice. A nice.
I love that concept of a birthday through the ages.
Yeah,
that was really neat. Originally, when they first talked about it, we're going to have 5 different ages of the birthday, and having tried to work pentagonal theory into Lego bricks before, I'm like, whoop, bad choice.
Five.
That will not work.
4.
You need to make it 4. You need to make it 6. You need to make it 8, and nothing else.
Right.
But I love how they were able to do the platform with the 4 in the middle, and then you can see the scene on top, and like that
works.
Was a good use of space, because they had the oblong nature of the balloon, and I really think that balloon was a really cool concept. I think if they had abandoned some of the motorization concept, they would have gained another 4 hours, and that would have been very polished, with even something like a turnkey mechanism at the top that just had little grab pieces, and then it would just drop open naturally. It's so easy for me to sit back and criticize.
That's what we do.
We can all be quarterbacks on the sideline, right?
I feel like this had so much potential, and I feel bad that their mechanism didn't work. Like the winch concept, I'm like, ooh, that is really cool.
Yeah.
But of course, it's weight, it's strings, it's gears.
Yeah.
You get a little bit of stress in the gear mechanisms. I've fallen victim to that in my own challenges on my season, so I get it. They wanted it to work. They really did, and of course, you want to wow the judges. This was an opportunity to get an advantage, right? So.
And EB Good says that's crazy impressive. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it was a neat.
Backseat builders. Yes, that's
100%.
Armchair quarterbacks, backseat builders.
Backseat builders. There we go.
Bricks is here. Hello, good to see you.
Yeah, I've definitely taken on the perspective, having gone on my own journey of Lego Masters, that now I start looking at these challenges from a thought point of, ooh, what would I do? What would I do? What would I do? Before, I just was, as a fan of the show, I reveled into what was being done, and now maybe I'm being critiquing or something, but I just feel like, oh, what would I do in this one? Like, what could I pull off in those 13 hours? So,
yeah.
Oh, that's true. I love vicariously live through these contestants.
Yeah.
We imagine maybe someday PT and I will be on a show. But
there you go. There you go.
I highly recommend it.
Well, you need to convince the casting directors to put us on the show. I don't know if they're watching.
I've been very fortunate to forge some relationships with some people that were part of production, and they're starting to look outwards of the net that they've originally cast. I think you're going to start seeing them at conventions, walking around.
Oh,
nice. That's actually smart for them, because then they can see, what they build, and they can look.
Yeah.
And then they get a chance to interact with the builder, and then you can see. Like I used to go to a lot of car shows as a young man, and I would see somebody's car, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And if the guy's like, yeah, I like my car. Well, that's the guy that didn't build it, right?
Like you need some personality.
When you can engage someone on what they've done, and they're excited, and they're animated, and they have that personality, you can see it right away, and you can see the connection that they have with what they do. So I think production, I don't know how well it's going to work. Like, they obviously can't hit every convention, but if they start going out and finding some of the maybe lesser known talent out there, the people that don't have Instagram, the people that don't do Flickr, YouTube, stuff like that, then maybe they're going to find a new caliber of builder out there, like your Charlie and Ollie.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, all of the builders have just been amazing. Every time I see a season, and I don't know if you know the backstory about this, Yo-Yo, about why we started doing Lego Masters New Zealand reviews.
No, I didn't know this.
But we started this because of your season getting postponed by like 3 months.
Yeah.
And
at the time, I'd like to say story, but that was better for everyone. They, when we actually left Atlanta, we were told May 31st was going to be the first episode. So we left, and that was like a month after we had left, and we are like, okay, yeah, we're getting ready for it. And they gave us a launch date. We started planning parties.
Yeah, exactly. We were planning broadcasts for, at the time, Remy and I.
We were so excited, right? And then they're like, nope, we're not going to do it.
Don't remind us.
Well, Eddie was part of this Gong show too.
Yes, but because of you, and this is why we have to thank you. This was a good outcome, is that we had to fill the time.
Yeah.
We had already lined up. Okay, we're going to start June 1st, right? I think that was your launch date. And it was like, okay, we're going to start doing reviews right after, the season starts. And then it was like, oh, no, we've got 12 weeks to fill now.
Let me tell you, it was a long summer for all of us.
And that's why I talked to Remy. I said, I have friends in New Zealand. And so why don't we just do Lego Masters New Zealand? It's 9 episodes. Brilliant. Perfect. They'll squeeze it right in. And then we are one of the few, the Brickanista Broadcast Network is one of the few that's actually reviewed Lego Masters New Zealand.
I love it.
Go figure.
And thank you for your exposure to this as well. Like I say, I've known Robin, but I haven't had a chance to really dive deep into these episodes until you provided me with this opportunity. And I'm loving it. I like the ability to watch how the other shows are operating, and some of the similarities and some of their differences. And it fosters my creative cycle, going back to what I said. Now I look at episode challenges like, ooh, what would I do? Yeah. So I like it when there's creative energy that comes from just the watching experience. So.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to thank you because of your postponement, we had to fill the time, and that's how, because people are saying, how come you're reviewing Lego Masters New Zealand? And it's like, well, what else are we going to do, right? And also because of my connection, I don't know if you know this, I have a Maori name. Kahurangi is my Maori name, so cool. I should have changed my title to Brick Kahunista, which is what I usually do, but I will have to do that later.
So some of the very Kiwi specific dialect you're understanding, right? Because
I know a little bit of the culture. The last episode, so for those of you who haven't seen episode 3 was big on Kiwiana.
Right.
And I knew some of the references, but I brought one of my Kiwi friends on the call, Alan Chisholm, and he filled us in. In fact, I don't know if you want to say this, PT. Do you want to tell him what happened?
No, you can have at it. Go.
So what happened is that PT was reviewing one of the builds, and he goes, and here we have the Northern Cross. And Alan says, that's the Southern Cross. It's like, keep us in line, Alan. Keep us in line.
Yeah, my bad. I just
this side of the globe, my friend.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why, like I said, and I didn't mean to disrupt the slideshow, but I wanted to mention that we really are thankful for season 3 being postponed because it gave us these opportunities. And when I reached out to TVNZ and said, hey, I've been reviewing the Lego Masters US, and then they said, okay, yeah, you can interview some of our people. And then I went over to Endemol Shine, and Endemol Shine says, oh, TVNZ approved you? Sure. You can start interviewing some of us on season 3 too. So that it's all been full circle, which has been awesome.
And to segue you back into your slideshow, the Kiwiana stuff, the treats that came out, I had to actually Google
chocolate fish,
because everybody got super excited about fairy bread. I'm like, what is fairy bread? Like every cast member is like, ooh, fairy bread. So I had to Google what fairy bread is. For anyone watching, I suggest you look up fairy bread.
And hello, Alien Land Law. Do we need a VPN to see this show? Yes, actually, you do need to go to, here is the link. This is tvnz.co.nz/shows/Lego-Masters or -NZ. I have to remember those are not dashes; those are hyphens.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's the direct link. So if you do want to see that, you do have to have, and it's because of the rights that TVNZ has, and that's why you can't find them on YouTube and other places.
Let me tell you, folks, it's well worth it. There's some great challenges.
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely. No, back to this is just Dye coming out. And I just like him and food. He always brings out all this food, and so here's a plate of sweets that he went and shared around, kind of as a, an I don't know, an interruption or a break time. I have no idea because the clock kept running.
Well, he's the Will Arnett color for this show, but what I like about Lego Masters New Zealand is it wasn't all about Dye Henwood. Right. Yeah. I mean, there was so much time, not that I don't like Will Arnett, but there was just so much time on Will Arnett. Whereas Dye Henwood, it was more of a balance between him and Robin and the cast.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think our friend Will has such a charismatic personality. It's hard not to just kind of follow him everywhere. So he's very good with being on camera, clearly. And I can assure you that a lot of the banter that went on never made it to TV. Like he knows how to control a room. He knows how to control it.
Absolutely.
Oh man. Well, so let's take a look at their final builds and how they turned out. Carson Angus, again, they had housewarming. This is Robin and Dye just kind of giving their pointers right there at the beginning. There's that beauty shot of the front where they put New Zealand.
And there was one part of the build where Karsten actually built this upside down and he had to rebuild it.
I forgot about that. Yeah. He literally, the hinges were on the other side. And he builds the whole thing, or studs that all in, and then just realized,
oh, I got to redo it.
Yeah. He was so frustrated. He just saw him just take that stripper and just take all those separators and take all those dots off.
Yeah.
So for some of the viewers right now, that last slide, sorry if you're...
Oh, go ahead, no.
It's a fantastic example of how you have to look at your project when you're working on it, because we're used to building right over top of what we're building. It's like that 1 foot range. If you were to stand over top of him when he was laying out those dots, those round pieces and the studs, it didn't necessarily translate very well, but they were looking at it continually by stepping back from the table to see that it translated to the island itself. So this is a perfect example of how you sometimes need to step back from your project to get a true scope of what it looks like. Because that looks like the front of a leather-bound book. It's lovely. It's so well done.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Yeah. No, I agree. So let's take a look. This is the book. They opened it up, and like we mentioned earlier, they have the pictures on the one side and the house with a bunch of scenes on the other. They go through that. I think we have a couple of close-ups of the house. I think there's the top section.
Of all the challenges, I felt like they had the hardest one to translate because every one of the other special occasions had something that was very iconic. It would be fairly easy to work around.
Yeah.
Right.
This was a lovely use of the concept of a housewarming gift, and I thought that was quite neat.
Yeah, the only other thing I was trying to think, because I said, well, I've given plants, I've given bottles of wine. I don't know what else, at that point. But when they came up with the book, I said, oh, yeah, that would, and because it opens up. And
it's like an album, and I think also just the detail of the furniture is also really good microscale furniture, too.
Yeah.
And this is where perhaps, and again, this isn't a form of critique, but when you take a look at Harry and Andrew, when they spent 5 hours working on motorization and then had to abandon it. Think about the level of detail they could have packed in, because Carson and Angus didn't start with that motorization concept and they could do pure build. So that was, this is clearly their forte. They're playing to their strength, and the details that are in there are actually quite phenomenal.
I think they also said they put their sig figs in every build, at least when we were talking to Angus. So I think it's in here, but it was hard to find.
I don't. Yeah,
I like
there might be in the pictures on the side, and I don't think I have a close up of that. Yeah, I don't see. I
just want to say hello to Juan Velez Moro, also known as AKA Yin Yang 847, one of my Twitch followers. Good to see you.
Hello.
And yes, he said the book is so good. I love the texture.
Yeah, there's a really clean build.
So this is Amy and Louie, and again, they had the wedding, and they ended up doing that cushion. Here it's shown just opened up as they're talking to Robin and Di. So here's the top of it, and the rings with the ribbon. Yeah, you get that sense out of this. You really can see that. But the pillow, is a little lumpy, I should say.
It's a bumpy pillow.
There's 1x2 and 1x3 curved slope pieces that would have given it a little more organic texture. But again, they had 13 hours on this challenge, and man, like it's one of those things that if you had 30, 40, 50 hours, you could really polish it up. So it's you have to make sure it's a translatable image. It worked, especially with the rings on top. That made a big difference.
Yeah, kind of finishes it off. Although I agree, I think if sculpting it, since you just had to manually open it up, I think sculpting probably would have been a better option. Yeah. So, and so here's the inside, and their wedding scene on the inside, and all these little things happening at a wedding. With the ring bearer in the middle there, dropping the pillow, and the rings are flying off, and little girl in the front corner here that's doing has the water and just pouring all the water on the floor, and there's some other things in there. I think the dog that chased along, there's some lights and decorations chasing up.
I love a good story, and they definitely had a fantastic story. They could have very easily done a very prim and proper beach wedding with everyone sitting in uniform lines, bride and groom, and that would have met the challenge. But somebody like Robin, Brickmaster Robin, I know for a fact he's that kind of guy that loves a good story, and I can appreciate that this isn't just a wedding, this is a disastrous wedding, and he's tripping. And then there's a crab that catches the ring on the beach. You're like, where's the crab from? Like, yeah. There's depth to this story, and I think when it comes down to it, my own personal experiences from the show, sometimes a story could pick up quite a bit your overall impression.
Well, they just are a very fun-loving team too. If you've seen some of their previous challenges, like we were talking to Angus about in the Mechanimal challenge, where they had to combine an animal and a mechanical one. That was the Tuatara and the race car, and Amy just kept going vroom, 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 throughout the time that she's building. I mean, you could tell that they just enjoy the building process, which is always great.
They do have fun, and they work well together, right?
Right.
Yeah, because they're not married, they're the couple, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So next we had Rachel and Jason, and of course the Valentine's and
Valentine's fridge.
In the Valentine's fridge. There's a little glamour shot of it there, the front and the side.
I think their finishing touches on this were the difference maker. Like that, to me, from that angle, looks exactly like a Valentine's card.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. Going back to your comment about the lettering and stuff really brings it out. But I am happening to look on the side. I'm like, wow, that is really wide. I think it's wider than Angus and Carson's book.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think so. I think it's also wider than the previous challenge when they had the big frame.
Oh, the frame.
That was 16 studs deep, and I think this one's maybe 32 studs wide.
Yeah,
it's
here's
pretty
a shot.
wide because
We can count the studs. No joke.
It was super clever of them to go with the winter theme too, because it did make those hearts stand out, and they did a great job with all the hearts, not just like one or two hearts. They wanted to transmit this pure Valentine's image. I loved it.
Yeah. No, she did. She went to town with the hearts. Rachel made all those. She was mass producing those hearts.
And I wonder, I don't know if you know the story about how they met, but they met at an ice skating rink. So I wonder if she was also referring to that, and that's why the winter scene.
I love that.
Little backstory is that she was very shy, and that Jason actually approached her, and they met on an ice skating rink. So we'll chat more with them next week about that. But I think that's also maybe why they chose the winter scene as well.
Yeah,
it's very, endearing to them.
It's their story, right? And I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's another shot, kind of showing the lettering on the inside. And
that's great. I like that. I was a little worried for them early on, but they really pulled that one together.
Yeah. Well, like you mentioned, how they had to pivot, taking less time to to build all that. So,
but they also have a good sense of humor about it too.
Yeah. So here's Andrew and Harry, and of course their pop balloon, or the balloon that was supposed to pop, birthday balloon, and it just kind of sat open because they couldn't close it.
They should have called it a lotus flower.
It's a birthday flower.
It's a birthday lotus flower.
Definitely had a flower type look to it.
It did. Or it does, I should say. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it definitely has a flower type look. Let's see. I think we have a few shots here. This is, I think, him in an old age, and one of the things they did, which I liked, was that red balloon
was a unifying element.
Yeah, and it's in every.
Well, it did remind me of that movie It.
Coming out of the sewer grate.
We float too. Yeah. Anyway, I was just thinking about that while this build was going. It's like, maybe I should have picked a different color balloon instead of the red balloon.
Yeah, here you can see a couple more of those scenes. That's too funny.
Debo has a comment from the previous build. I think the temperature is set too low in that fridge.
It was chilly.
Oh, funny.
Well, this rotating platform with the different scenes, do you remember at Bricks Cascade that there was another build of a theater, that the librarian build? Actually, it wasn't a theater, but 4 different scenes from books.
Oh, yeah. That was
Pat
from
Harmon's
Kate.
build. And it reminded me of that because she had 4 rotating scenes as well that was set on a timer with an MV3, or I'm sorry, EV3.
Yeah.
And it would open up and close, and then the rotating platform, and then it open up again. So I think they used a very similar concept, but like you said earlier, Yo-Yo, they put the 5th scene on top. So that was very clever.
There was a neat build at Brick World Chicago that was massive, and it was 6 quadrants on a rotating turntable, and they were individual scenes from The Wizard of Oz. And it started with one of the high wedges was all black and white, like the movie starts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was the progression of the movie all the way to the Emerald City at the end. It was quite clever. I'm a little behind in posting stuff on Instagram, so I'll get that one up in particular. I love that one.
Wow.
I can't wait. Like I said, we live vicariously through other AFOLs and their Instagram accounts.
I got to be better. I still haven't done all my my Bricks Cascade photos, which is terrible. But I've just been celebrating Lego and family all the time right now.
And you have your pose as well, Yo-Yo, the pointing to the other people pose, right?
It seems to be a trademark.
It is a trademark. It's like, we know that you're pointing to the other AFOLs in the group.
That's too funny.
Came upon it accidentally.
And then we have here is Ollie and Charlie and their Christmas globe, and here's a picture of it opening up, which he actually, he opened up mechanically, or with a remote.
So impressive.
Yeah. And then they had, here's kind of a side view of it when you see the presents where Santa has been and whatnot sprinkled throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know the Brickmaster came up with the comment for this one. Well, it doesn't immediately translate to what it was supposed to. I saw the presents and I was instantly like, oh, such a good detail, right?
Well, I
had to sleigh. Come on.
Yeah, I think so, because you don't this little Santa tracker thing you get, and it has and it has him, and he's throwing presents out, and it shows you where he's been with presents. I mean,
yeah, I thought personally it translated very well, and then of course to open it up to Santa's workshop, that
was amazing just to see it open up like that.
I'm not sure if you guys saw from Brick. I did a collaborative build with 2 other builders, and we did a massive Santa's workshop and display. So this one, I don't know, perhaps I'm a little biased. I really, really like this.
You like Christmas though, because we've had this conversation about the Santa hats, that every person in your family has 2 Santa hats.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. But then they used iconic imagery in this one, like come on.
Oh, definitely. I love the little candy cane platform,
and a guy like Robin Sather's going to look at that duck and be instantly like, that's not just any Christmas toy. That's a Lego Christmas.
That's Lego inspired. Yes.
Yeah.
That was a great touch. I think the world of these two builders. They're quite impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it shows you too, when you were talking earlier about tipping the globe forward, that in order for the mechanism to work, and it's just so impressive to see it open up like that. And it's not, motorized. It's just a mechanism that they can just flip on and flip off, but it's very reliable too.
Yeah.
This is one of those teams where they were given 13 hours to pull off something of particularly significance. Can you imagine if they had 26 hours, or like in my case with the finale, 24 hours? 24 hours to do a polished build, twice the amount of time. Can you imagine what they would have done with this thing?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what I would imagine is Charlie riding this thing around the studio.
Turn it into a gyro ball with a seat on
Make it
top.
like, yeah, exactly, like a gyrosphere.
I truly think the guy could do it.
He
I think it'd be a transformer. It would
no
just
doubt
walk
he
on
could
stage
do
and
it.
just transform.
By the way, Debo had a comment on the previous build, or the Wizard of Oz build you were referencing, that there was a fortune of flying monkeys that I guess they had to purchase for that Wizard of Oz build.
Yeah, there were some pretty impressive minifigures in that display.
I like the beauty shot of this too.
Yeah.
It just really captures it so well.
Yeah, it's interesting though that talking about they did a globe. They could have easily just done a present, and just take the lid off the present. But I think they were going a little more creative, and I liked the globe. I really did like the globe.
Mm-hmm.
And he came up with the concept and the skeleton of it so fast.
Mm-hmm.
He did. I mean, they were talking about it, and then he goes, "Oh," and he just
runs to the brick pit. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he comes back, and they shoot to another team, and they come back to him, and he's already built.
What do you think of this size? Is this size big enough? And when he said that, it was like, what, you're going to make it bigger? Like, what?
The trick, of course, is to keep it really simple with a strong skeleton, and then skin it as little as possible. But there's clearly still a lot of weight in that.
Yeah.
And PT, you said you built the globe set?
I have.
That is one of my favorite builds in years. That thing was so crazy complicated and impressively altered. And then to think that it could have opened up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This one was a technical marvel. I'm super impressed by this build.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, and as it is, that's in competition, 5 teams. And then the top 2 teams they ended up picking were Karsten and Angus, and Ollie and Charlie for their builds. And of course, that was the Karsten and Angus did the housewarming gift, and Ollie and Charlie did the Christmas globe there. And
spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert! Yes, thank you. Spoiler alert! Karsten and Angus won that challenge for their book, and they got the team advantage for the next challenge.
Which was a golden brick, right?
Yeah. I commend them for this one. This was definitely a very polished build. I really like Charlie and Ollie, but when it comes down to little tiny differences that make that final connection, it's the fact that it looked so polished. Like when you stood back from their book, it looked like a leather-bound book. Yeah. And when you stepped back from the globe was a little imperfect in spots, but I still love that build.
It's memorable. I think that's the one thing, is that even though that team didn't win, that globe is going to sink in our minds for a long time. Whereas the housewarming book, it was nice, but to me, it wasn't as over the top. But if it comes down to the details, you're right. Then it should have won.
I guess that wasn't technically adventurous, the book, where the globe is. Yeah, you've won again. Trying to make anything round out of a square brick, that's always the trick. And I'm still learning. I am not very good at those curves and natural, even with curved slope pieces and stuff. So
practice.
Got to keep
practicing. Yeah.
Lego Masters, you got to practice.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I got to. Well,
there he goes.
I didn't mean right now.
The wow factor, exactly.
No. So
exactly, alien land law. Yes.
So I had to laugh because this is on a turntable that slowly turns.
I like that.
And so when I saw this, I turned around and I created one for New Zealand, and this is their power brick that they use instead of the gold brick.
That. Yeah.
So, yeah.
We showed this to also Robin.
Yeah.
And he loved it. And apparently that New Zealand, the NZ, I guess, formation has never been done on a Lego Master show before. And that was the first time was for New Zealand.
That's incredible. That's a neat one. That's a fantastic little mock.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I'm taking it. I was going to advertise the show, the review show.
Yeah, what's the next show you're going to be at?
No, it's not on a Mindstorm. It's just on a little a turntable that has a light, and there's a hole that shines up. So the light shines up on the sky, kind of. Oops! As I drop it, lights up the clouds. You'll see some light and come up behind the light. Comes up behind the lettering.
Lego makes lights too, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, although I'm not a fan of Lego lighting. Sorry, we're way off subject.
Yeah,
I was going to say that's another episode because we
promised. We could actually, Naomi. We could do a whole episode. I have been adventuring in lighting for a couple years now, and I've gone through almost every brand out there, and then some obscure thing, and even with Zonker, starting to solder my own. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we will save that for another episode on lighting because we did promise to Yo-Yo's family that we would be done in an hour and a half.
You've got 4 minutes.
Last time he was on the show, it was 3.5 hours.
Can I bring up one point because
please.
This goes back to an earlier conversation I made at the beginning of the casting here. Most people don't recognize me if I don't do my hair. But and that's because you've seen me on the show. But if you've ever seen me at a convention, I will almost always be wearing a baseball cap. And I was told it's because it creates shadows. So like I've even put a light here to make my face not shadowed. Being cognizant of the fact that my hat causes shadows. When I watched the first episode of New Zealand and I saw Carson walk out with a hat, I'm like, come on, man. And of course, it's his signature piece, and I think that's awesome for Karsten. I was disappointed for me.
Well, you could have had your firefighter's hat.
Maybe.
If you would have lobbied for it, I bet they probably would have let you do that. But then that would have been maybe heavy for you.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, if you ever come to a place where I've got one of those handy, I'll put it on your head, and you'll realize as soon as you tip forward, it wants to bring your full head down or up onto your workstation. So. They're meant for function. They're certainly not.
Well, we really appreciate all you do for the community too, because I don't know if I told you this story last time. I've been evacuated by 2 fires from Northern California: the 2017 Santa Rosa fire and the 2019 Windsor fire. And I have the utmost respect for firefighters and what you do. You go running into the blaze to protect us, and really appreciate you.
Thank you. I love doing what I do. So by that default, it makes it easy. So,
well, thanks again for being on the show. And
thanks for inviting me.
Do you have any other last questions?
No, he's got 2 minutes. So I'd give it to Steve and let him, close it out.
I'm very honored to be involved with this process. I consider myself to be an AFOL in all my life. Like it's infiltrated every part of me, and I think the truest contributions of an AFOL is to foster creativity. And if by being involved with projects like this, I get a chance to someone look at my work and my stuff and say, hey, I want to do that too. I love that. I love being a part of that bigger picture and that bigger community thing. So thank you for having me. I love doing stuff like this. It's clearly hard to get me to shut up sometimes. So
thank you.
We're at an hour and a half. It's 2 hours shorter than the last time we talked.
Well, and you approached me about how can you help, and I thought about it a little bit. I said, well, we're doing these Lego Masters New Zealand reviews, and you immediately said, I'm down for that. Yeah, really happy to have you here. And of course, PT, as always, awesome host, and EB good to see you as well. Always good to see you.
Ready.
And Debo Bricks, thanks. It was a fun show. Yes, it's always fun when we have these great, awesome people. Thank you, Alien Landlaw, also Juan Velazzomo, Two Humble Bricks, Brick Jedi, everybody else who's been on this show today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the stream. I know I sound like a broken record here, but I'm trying to get to 500. So if you can like and subscribe to the stream, that would really help out. Don't forget to follow Yo-Yo Firebricks on Instagram if you want to see some of these really cool mocks that he saw at Brick World Chicago. Don't forget p.t.mcewen on Instagram as well. And we mentioned this website earlier, so if you want to go see the episodes, that's the best place to go for that. And you're listening to the Brickanista Broadcast Network here on YouTube and Rumble. Thank you so much. You can also follow me on Rumble here, rumble.com/user/Brickanista. And if you want to send any kind of fan mail, you can send it to P.O. Box 87232, Vancouver, Washington, 98687. So thank you, everybody. You've been awesome here and great stream. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And as they say also on the Brickanista Broadcast Network, thank you so much. Thank you again, Yo-Yo and PT. You've been awesome as always. And thank you, everybody. And as they say on the Brickanista Broadcast Network, thank you, and may the clutch be with you. Take care.
Ciao.
Bye. Oops.
Great timing.
Cool.